right. How are you?
I'm good. Who did you bring with you this morning?
Okay, so I have on my left Bob Barton and Mike Lee. And we're going to be interviewing them today about the TVA and the energy that we all have in our homes every day. So this show is called Common Sense Matters. It's about everyday things that affect every person, and nothing affects us more than the power in our house. We can't do anything without it. So we hope this is a relevant topic to everybody, and most importantly, what's the future of the energy that we're going to have. But before we get into that, I just had a few announcements. This show is Common Sense Matters. It's sponsored by the Franklin County Democratic Party. We meet every third Thursday of the month at the Franklin County Annex next to the Election Commission. Except not this February, because this February we're not having our monthly meeting because we're having an event. So let me tell you all about the event. On President's Day, which is February 20th, we're having a spelling bee and an American history bee. So the spelling bee's for the kids and the American history bee's for the adults. So it's going to be at the Swanee Community Center Monday, February 20th at 6 o'clock. There's going to be free dinner. If you win first prize, and we're going to have two spelling bees, so one for the younger kids, one for the older kids. And the winner gets $50. And it's going to be fair, because like if you're in first grade, you're going to be spelling from a first grade list. If you're in second grade, you're going to be spelling from a second grade list. So nobody's going to be having to spell words that are above their level. So that's coming up. There's going to be food, prizes, all that. And then the adults will be competing for dinner for two at the Fiesta Grill. And they're going to be answering American history questions. So we've done this for many years, like back since, oh gosh, I don't know, 2010 maybe. But we put it on hold when the pandemic came, so this is our first time doing it again since 2020. So I'm really happy that we're back to doing this again. You can register the night of the event. Try and show up maybe 15 minutes before. So we have time to get your kid registered, or you registered if you're going to do the American history one. And kids can actually enter the American history one too. We've had some middle schoolers really give the adults a run for their money in the show. I mean, in this contest. So that's going to be fun. That's Monday, February 20th at the Swanee Community Center at 6 o'clock. I also wanted to let y'all know that our website is Franklin County, Tennessee DemocraticParty.com. So it's all written out, all lowercase, all one word. Franklin County, Tennessee, written out, not just TN, DemocraticParty.com. So that's where you can find out where our events are.
Long.
I know. Well, everything else was taken. There's a Franklin County in every state in the country, probably.
There's a Winchester.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Winchester's
It's actually the only city. There's one in every state.
Yeah, Virginia. I know definitely there's one in Virginia. Is there one in Louisiana?
Every state has a Winchester.
I'm from Louisiana. I never saw a Winchester. Huh. Anyway, and y'all please excuse me. I'm getting over a cold. And I wanted to talk just really quickly about, we've just gotten a new Republican Congress, and I want to just talk really briefly about what their plans are for the next 2 years, as opposed to what has happened in the last 2 years with a Democratic Congress. So with Biden and the Democratic Congress in the last 2 years, here's just a few of their accomplishments. And these are things that are going to affect everyday people in your lives. Insulin is now capped at $35 a month for senior citizens. And I bet everyone listening to me knows a senior citizen on Medicare who needs insulin. So these are improvements to your daily life. Hearing aids are easier and cheaper to get for older people. It used to be you had to go and get a prescription. I don't know. It required a lot of running around. It's a lot easier to get now and cheaper for hearing aids. This is the lowest unemployment rate we have ever seen, 3.5%. Never in my lifetime. Well, actually, it's the highest. It's the lowest in 50 years. I'm 53, so I guess maybe when I was 3 years old it was lower, but lowest I can remember in my lifetime. The Inflation Reduction Act has been signed, and we're going to be talking with these gentlemen about that in a little bit. More people are on health insurance than ever before. And in fact, just as I was driving here, they were talking about how it's the highest rate in Tennessee right now. And that's because originally when the Obamacare ACA was signed, we were supposed to hire navigators to help people figure out the system and get signed up. Well, when Trump came into office, they defunded that. They weren't hiring any navigators, and now they're hiring lots of navigators again. And our own Nancy Silvertooth was a navigator, although she was an unpaid one. She just did it out of the goodness of her heart. But so we have more navigators, and so more people than ever are covered by health insurance than ever before. Veterans can receive assistance if they were exposed to toxic burn pits during their service. You may very well know a veteran who's benefiting from that. They signed the CHIPS Act, which will help us in computer manufacturing, keep an edge over other countries like China. We've passed very modest gun legislation. All it did was expand background checks, incentivize states to have red flag warnings. So, like if a wife beater can't buy a gun, stuff like that. And although this legislation has passed, I bet you don't know a single person in your life who has lost their gun. No, nobody probably, unless they're a wife beater. Okay, we have assistance for people with student loan debt. Now, that is unfortunately on hold right now because Republicans have it in court. So no one's feeling the effects of that yet. My son-in-law was really hoping to get that, but the Republicans are tying it up in knots. I think the Republicans think that every person with student loan debt is like a women's studies major who works at Starbucks. But people with student loan debts are nurses, CPAs, people you deal with in your life, and they could really, really use this help. Republicans don't think a thing about helping out a millionaire by giving him a tax break or whatever, but when it comes to just average, everyday working people, they never seem to look like that. In the last 2 years, millions of Americans are now vaccinated and able to live normal, maskless lives now. So that's a huge accomplishment. And I will give it to Trump. He got that vaccine developed in his term. And I really credit him for that, Operation Warp Speed. And then when Biden came in, that's when it got out to everybody in the land. In every CVS, you can get it for free, all that. Record number of fentanyl seizures at the border. So in the past, between 21 and 22, 14,700 pounds of fentanyl have been seized at the border. And when you think about a teeny tiny little ounce of that stuff will kill you. Imagine how many lives have been saved by seizing 14,700 pounds. I mean, you multiply that by a million, that's how many people have been saved by that. Gas prices are way down. Now, I will admit, gas prices went way up right before the midterms. Right before the midterms, it was almost $4. Now it's $3.28. So I think the gas prices, the gas companies were maybe jacking them up for political reasons. I don't know. But a massive infrastructure spending bill has been passed. I don't know if y'all remember during the Trump administration, every week they'd say, oh, it's infrastructure week. Nothing ever happened. Well, we finally passed a huge infrastructure bill, and those projects are already underway. They made it harder for billionaires to cheat on their taxes while middle-class people have to pay all of theirs. They codified the right of Americans to marry who they want to marry. And they got us out of the endless war in Afghanistan. So those are some of the accomplishments of the last 2 years. Now here's what the Republicans have on the plate for us in the next 2 years, if while they're in control. Investigate Hunter Biden's laptop. Now how is that going to affect you and your family? They want to have a government shutdown and not pay for spending that they've already approved. 25% of our deficit was accrued under the Trump administration. So it's like going to a restaurant and ordering the steak and the lobster, and then when the bill comes, you dine and dash. Why not? I agree, maybe, yes, sure, there's probably spending we can cut, but you don't wait until you've already spent it and then say we're not going to pay it. When you're going to the restaurant, you order the chicken instead. So when you're making the budget, that's the time to cut or increase taxes or whatever. But you don't go to a restaurant, order the steak and the lobster, and then you leave if you don't have much money. You go in, you order the chicken, you pay for it. So, but they're going to do that to get leverage, and they're going to get leverage to cut your Social Security and your Medicare that you paid for. So that's one of the things they have on the sales. I mean, on the docket coming up for the next 2 years. Now, I don't think Kevin McCarthy's on board with this, but there's a big contingent of the Republican Congress that want to pass a 30% national sales tax. Think of that, y'all. A 30% national sales tax. In Tennessee, we pay a 10% sales tax on all our groceries. They want to add a 30% one on that. And, of course, they would get rid of income tax. Just everybody, every man, woman, and child would pay 30%. So in Tennessee, that would be 40%. So think how unfair that is. Imagine, let's just think of this in terms of a pizza. Imagine if you're a poor family, you have one pizza. The government comes and says, I'm taking a third of your pizza. Imagine if you are a really rich guy with 10,000 pizzas, and the government says, I'm going to come take a third of one of your pizzas. Is that going to affect him? But what about the poor family who only has the one pizza, having to give 30%, a third of that pizza away? It is very unfair, a sales tax, because poor people and rich people all buy a gallon of milk. You know, you go to the grocery store and spend $100. That would mean paying $40 every time you go to the grocery store, or $30 if you live in another state. And whether you are the poorest person in the country or the richest person in the country, you're going to pay $30 or $40 every time you go do your weekly grocery run. It is not fair for a millionaire to pay $30 and someone making $20,000 a year to pay $30 every time they go to the grocery store. They want to make it easier for billionaires to cheat on taxes by underfunding the IRS. They want to leave the Ukrainian people high and dry. They want to censor libraries and teachers about what they can teach, what books we can read. They want to deprive women of the right to make decisions about their own bodies. And I'm just asking, are any of these things going to help you and your family? I think not. All right, that's enough of my rant, but I just want to put things into perspective about the last 2 years and what we can expect in the next 2 years. Now, luckily, we do have the Senate and the presidency, so hopefully the Senate and the president will block this ridiculous 30% nationwide sales tax. And all these other things. But anyway, let's get on to the topic that we're here, and I'm sick of hearing my own voice, and I'm getting over a cold, and I'm hoarse, and I want to hear from Bob and Mike, because these guys know what they're talking about. So, Bob, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? We're switching now to talking about the TVA and the energy that we have in Tennessee. So just tell us about a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you went to school, blah, blah, blah.
I grew up in Tullahoma.
Okay.
And left, went and joined the Navy for a few years and came back. And I've been back ever since. So I've gotten an associate's degree. I have not finished my 4-year degree, but I've got my associate's degree, and I'm now retired.
What are you retired from?
Oh my goodness. I was the director of facilities at Motlow College for 10 years.
Okay.
I also worked in underwater robotics all over the world for a while. And I've done a lot of different things through the years, and now that I'm retired, I'm trying to become more of a local activist. So that's probably one way that you heard about me in the first place.
Okay. Well, we heard about you in the first place because you wrote a very well-written letter to the editor about how there were all these absences on the board of the TVA. What is your opinion of the new? And okay, so for how many years? Tell us a little bit about that situation. How there was nobody on the board at the TVA, right? And why was that?
TVA has a board membership of 9 people. For a long time now, they have only had 5, a slight quorum. And most of those folks were Republican appointees, and they turned around.
Now, who are they appointed by? Who appoints the board of the TVA?
Well, they're confirmed by the Senate.
Okay, the U.S. Senate.
Yes.
Okay, not the Tennessee State
That's
Senate.
correct, the U.S. Senate.
Okay.
And they, only having 5 active members at the time on the board, turned around and gave the CEO, Jeff Lyash, a whole bit of authority to make decisions and stuff, which he is using. And now the board is fully staffed. The Senate just confirmed 6 new
So
board
this is
members.
the newly elected Senate, the democratically controlled Senate?
This was done before
before
January.
Oh, okay. So
Because
the
2 of the
former
5 that
Senate.
were on the previously, their terms ended the 1st of January.
Okay.
So there were 3 remaining ones come January 1st, and then about, I think it was January 6th, January 4th, somewhere right around there, the Senate confirmed and it's 6 new members, which are all Democratic nominees, Biden administration nominees. And so now the board is fully staffed and in place.
Okay, and you feel like they can be a check on the TVA head, Mr. Lyash?
The board can now start functioning as they should have been in the first place.
Okay. And what is your opinion of the new board members?
They have quite a diverse geography because TVA serves customers in 8 different states.
Okay, it's not just Tennessee.
Not just Tennessee. And and one of the reasons this was being held up, and the reason I wrote the letter to the editor, was that they wanted to have some diversity in the different states on the board, and so that's one of the things that held it up, and that was achieved.
Okay, good. All right. Well, who appointed the current head of the TVA, Mr. Lyash?
The board appoints the heads of the TVA.
Okay.
And
so he was appointed by that former
he was
board.
appointed in 2019.
Okay. All right. And how does he compare? What do you feel like his agenda is, or do you feel like he's doing a good job, or?
I don't feel he's doing a good job as a local environmental and ecological activist. I'm very concerned about the amount and the processes by which TVA authorizes alternative energy. And CEO Lyash just in the last couple of days approved the conversion of the Cumberland coal plant into a combined mixed gas plant.
But isn't that better than coal?
Gas burns cleaner than coal, but it still puts out quite a bit of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And if that's something that you're trying to reduce, which we absolutely have to be doing, in fact, TVA has a mandate to be carbon-free by 2035. Why do you want to 13 years before that, or 12 years before that deadline, put 2 new gas plants in place instead of trying to achieve that capacity with renewable energy?
So they're just converting 2 that already exist?
That's correct.
Okay. And so if we were to go to solar or wind, would that require building a whole new one from scratch? A whole new?
Well, solar and wind don't usually have a confined place like a normal plant does. The energy intensity of solar and wind is a lot less than you will find at a fossil fuel plant. Fossil fuels are very energy intense per unit. And so to get solar and wind energy, you've got to have a wide distribution to be able to get to offset the same amount of energy that you would find in fossil fuels.
And so you feel like the money that they're spending converting those two plants would be better spent putting in solar and wind?
I think if they want to achieve their goal, their stated goal of achieving a carbon-free production by 2035, they better get in the business of doing it. And this is an opportune time to be able to start doing that.
And what's going to happen if they haven't reached that benchmark of being carbon-free by 2035?
Well, they set a carbon-free benchmark arbitrarily in the first place, and that is to reduce carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Carbon emissions into the atmosphere are causing a lot of current and many upcoming ecological issues that not so much me now, I'm 70 years old, but my children and grandchildren are going to have to deal with.
Yeah. So recently at Christmas, it was single digits. It got down to 0 degrees, and there were rolling blackouts all over Tennessee. Do you think that this could have been avoided? Or is it just like when it gets 0 degrees, there's nothing you can do about it?
Well, no, I mean,
I'm asking you to, and I'm sorry, and I have not introduced Mike Lee yet. So before we go on, Mike, could you just introduce yourself a little bit and your kind of career and interest in this topic?
Yeah, I'm basically an electrical engineer. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area and went to Penn State. But then afterwards I went into the Air Force and got into communications, then got out of the Air Force and went into industrial steel mill design. Then at that point in time, the first energy crisis occurred in the 70s, and I got into coal mining, machinery design. And then lo and behold, after that, I took a job with Boeing helicopters and did a complete turnaround from coal to aircraft. And then eventually I got a job down here in Tennessee with UTSI. So
that's AEDC? No. What's UTSI? I'm sorry.
University of Tennessee Space Institute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're located next to AEDC.
Okay. Right.
So I have since retired and done some teaching, but basically I've kind of come in tune with what Bob Bates here has been professing. I think he's on the right track with his ideas.
So you're very familiar with how a coal plant works, right? And so do you think so what is your opinion then of just as an interim step of converting a coal plant to a natural gas plant? I mean, it is better than continuing with coal, right? For the environment.
Correct, yeah. The natural gas would burn a lot cleaner, but it doesn't solve the air quality issue about CO2 being in the atmosphere and creating global warming. So if they're going to replace a coal plant, why not go completely to zero carbon technology, which would include solar, wind, and hydroelectric. So the planning does not seem to be conducive with what we need in this day and age.
So, but like cost-wise, the cost of converting a coal plant to a natural gas plant, I have no idea how much that's going to cost, but do you think if the same amount were spent on putting solar and windmills all over the state, would we end up with the same amount of energy, do you think? I know that's hard to extrapolate, but
well, solar has some advantages that you could produce the energy where you need it. It doesn't have to be centralized in a high intensity power plant. It could be here in Tullahoma, Winchester. Some solar arrays could be put close to Nashville. So the distribution of the power is a lot easier because it's being generated near where it's used.
Right, and I think that would make us more secure because, like, recently there have been people attacking power facilities out in North Carolina and Washington State and things like that. So yeah, I feel like the more spread out it is, probably the more secure it is. Now, what is your opinion then about the blackouts that they had to do during that really, really cold snap that we had? Do you think that could have been avoided, or with better management, or a better system, or what?
Well, we really don't know the details of what caused the blackouts, and it did occur with gas plants, so gas is not immune to that problem.
Okay.
And since solar doesn't have any fluids that need to be moved, it may be less susceptible.
So, like, when I think of the TVA, I think about dams. I think about big dams, and so I'm always picturing all our energy coming from hydroelectric dams. But what is the percentage of the power that we get right now from the TVA? Like, what percentage is coal? What percentage is dams? Do y'all know that?
Coal and methane make up 44% of TVA's generation.
Okay.
The hydroelectric, solar, wind, and nuclear make up the remaining 56%.
Okay.
Of that, solar and wind are only about 3% of the total right now, and that's pretty standard nationwide. There are places in the southeast United States that have a lot higher percentage of renewable energies than TVA. That's one of the TVA should be, because of the type of entity they are, a quasi-federal kind of thing that was developed to bring power to the rural southeast. Starting in 1933, they ought to be a leader in the areas of power generation, and they are not.
So what is the relation? So here in Franklin County, we use Duck River Electric. What is the relationship between Duck River and TVA? Either of y'all can answer that. Is it two totally separate things, or are they? TVA
is the generation of power unit, and they serve 8 different states. Not the total states. It's a service area that includes 8 different states, but not the total 8 complete states. Duck River, just like Tullahoma Utilities Authority, is one of 153 local power companies that take that power from TVA and distribute it to their customers in their particular areas.
Okay, so Duck River's not generating or making power themselves; they're just distributing it.
They could be with permission from TVA to have some solar capacity. I'll have to give you an example from Tullahoma, though. Tullahoma Utilities Authority has a solar farm with expansion capabilities. And TVA authorized them to have a certain amount of power generation local that they can then input into the total system there. My understanding, and Mike want to tell me more about this, but that was turned down in Franklin County.
Yeah, I was on the county commission. I was the one person on the county commission who didn't vote to outlaw that. I actually just abstained because it just came up. There was no discussion. I'm not going to vote on something if I don't have the information. I just abstained, but everybody else voted against it. And, I too love to drive down the highway and see, corn growing and soybeans and whatever. I think it's definitely prettier than, it's the rural character and all that. I love seeing that. But you know what? Just today, as I was driving down here, I saw a beautiful field in Cowan that had real estate signs all over it. And a Dollar General's fixing to go up or something that's not going to be a beautiful bean field. It's going to be, so why not it be a solar farm? Yeah, they're not beautiful, but neither is a Dollar General. And if your farmland is right on a highway, its value is going to be so high that you're going to have to be tempted to sell it for subdivisions or strip malls or whatever they're going to put in. So, yeah, I did not vote against the solar farms in Franklin County.
I'm a very high proponent of solar energy, but I don't like the prospect of taking arable land that could be used for farming and covering it with solar panels when we've got plenty of rooftops already in existence that are taking up space
and
already. Parking lots, those kind of things that if we just smart about the deployment of this technology, then we don't have to interfere with the other parts of nature as much.
I agree. I think it's very inefficient just to take arable land and turn it in there. But I also think that a farmer has the right to do whatever they want to with their land, and if they want to sell it to that and do that with it, they have the right to do that. If they want to turn it into sell it to a Dollar General, they can do that. They have the right to do what they want with it, and the county commission kind of said no. But okay, so
I have a question.
Yeah.
What they're saying, they have a right to the land. I agree completely. But what about the right to your neighbor's land, like their property? Because if you put something like that out there, it does change the value of the property around it. It also can change the soil, the dirt around it. If you're messing with the underwater, like there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I don't know enough about solar farms to be educated on the subject. I know that when they proposed it here in the county, I was, paying attention, reading everything y'all were doing and talking about it, listening to y'all talk. But there wasn't a whole lot of discussion.
there was not.
I know talking to a few individuals in Lincoln County, because they have that huge solar farm out there, and talking to a couple of the county commissioners over there, they said if they could do it all over again, they'd vote no on it. They wouldn't do it because of how, and I don't think it has anything to do with the environmental impact of it. I think it's the way it worked out with the whole proposal and what they're getting in return. So I guess that's be my question to you is how can that affect your neighbor if you do put a solar farm on your property?
Again, I'm not a proponent of putting solar
I understand
on
that.
virgin land
I was
or
just curious.
arable land.
Yeah.
But if you put it on your rooftop, that increases the value of your home. If it increases the value of your home, it's going to increase the value of your neighbor's home. So,
And people put stuff next door to your land all the time. We just voted on the quarry. All the neighbors around the quarry, they didn't want it. It went through. Now they have a quarry next door to them. Just because there's a million things you could put on your land next door to me that might bother me. A solar farm is just one of them.
I'm not really worried much about the bothering, like the aesthetic aspects of it. I'm just like the environmental impact is what I'm curious about, because that's the one thing I've read many of times, and like I said, I don't know the answer. I don't know if it's true or not. That's why I'm asking y'all, because you seem like y'all are very educated on the subject.
That solar farms have a bad impact on the environment?
Well, the negative impact on the land itself around it. Like that's the only thing I've heard, and that's what I'm curious about.
if you put it, and most solar farms, in fact, the solar farm for Tullahoma Utilities Authority was put on an old cornfield. Okay, that land is not going to be growing, productive food for consumption anymore. They probably have to fence it in to keep people out and put a herd of goats on it to keep the weeds down. So that's not a viable thing. But so I'm not proposing that, but that's the environmental impact that you have when you put something on land. If you're not smart about the deployment of that technology, regardless of what that technology is, and solar is just one example, then you're going to have negative ramifications about it. So getting a committee together, talking about things, working through it, seeing what other people have done in different parts of the world, say for instance, gives you information in order to make a better decision. For instance, Germany has one of the highest ratings of and percentages of solar energy in the world, but they have more cloud cover than Tennessee. So you just have to, and they're very smart about their implementation and how they do things. They're a lot smaller country. They don't want to take up their land, so how they deploy it, whether they put it on top of a parking lot that's already asphalt. Well, you might keep the sun off the asphalt. It might make it a little cooler in that area.
I've seen that, and I think that's actually really smart the way, because they raise them about 12 feet off the ground and have the panels up there. It covers, I mean, from what I saw, really say, because of bad weather, rain, you've got coverage for people going in and out of businesses.
Your
It looked
car
like,
doesn't get hot.
yeah, it seemed very intelligent the way I saw the design. I want to say it was Norway where I saw the picture of that one.
They use that all over the place.
Yeah, but I thought it was a really cool design, and I agree with that. I was just,
And that's what I'm talking about, smart deployment, smart implementation of particular technology. Anything that starts off, any kind of technology, is going to have bumps in the road as you go along till you start finding out what the little things are here and there and compensating for it and creating a better technology as time goes on. Solar is one of those things. Wind turbines are one of those things. We need to get better wind turbines that don't cause as much harm to bird populations, and they are in the process, and there are some that are deployed already that have a different kind of mechanism that doesn't capture or harm waterfowl, as much as the old turbines did. So as time goes on, the technology also gets better, implementation gets better, you learn more about it, and you get a better product.
one of the coolest things I ever saw was, I don't know if y'all ever drove up to Chicago. When you get to the northern part of Indiana, I remember coming up there and I was like, oh, there's a couple of turbine. I'd never seen a wind turbine before the first time I
Oh,
ever
out
tried.
west, yeah, you see them a lot.
I mean, you get about, I don't know, 10 miles into that trip, and all of a sudden there's thousands of wind turbines everywhere.
Yeah.
It blew me away. I thought it was pretty neat. I don't know how much they produce energy-wise, but I thought it was pretty cool seeing all that out there.
Both wind and solar are now cheaper per unit of energy produced than fossil fuels. So why do you still go to fossil fuels when the alternatives are cheaper?
When you got to transport it, drill it, get it, move it around.
Now, it costs, it takes materials and energy to produce solar panels and wind turbines. So there's an offset. But when you put all of that into the equation and stuff, it's still cheaper to generate electricity with solar and wind than it is with fossil fuels, which are causing the most part and the most significant parts of the problems environmentally and ecologically. So why not go ahead and make that step and take that position? TVA should, right now, with the new board that is primarily democratically nominated and approved by the Senate, works stringently towards TVA's stated goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2035. They need to start doing that.
So, I had heard, and I don't know if this is true, but in some states you can have a grid intertie system on your house, like where you have solar panels on your roof, and so if it's sunny, you're getting, you're not paying anything. You're making all your own energy, and if it's rainy, then you can draw on the local utility for your power. And then if it's really sunny day after day, then the local utility is actually buying back power from you. So you might even, instead of owing at the end of the month, you might even be getting money at the end of the month. Now, I heard that is not allowed around in Tennessee. Is that the case?
That's true. It's called net metering.
Mm-hmm. Net metering.
Net metering. And there's different ways of doing it. But when you strictly have a solar system, a photovoltaic system that is grid tied, when you're producing more electricity than you're using in your house, your meter runs backwards.
Wow. And what states do allow that? What are some states that do allow that? net metering?
Well, Florida, California, Oregon, Washington, New York, Massachusetts.
And who made that decision about Tennessee? Our state legislature
The
or the TVA? Or?
TVA did not want it, so it didn't happen.
Jeez.
Okay. I mean, the Public Utility Commission has the final say on that particular thing, which is a state, entity. But if TVA doesn't want it, it doesn't happen, and that is what has to change. But to go and answer your question completely on the net metering, if you produce electricity more than you use, if you feed it back into the grid, your meter can either run backwards, so that like you might even get a rebate, at the end of the month or something, or you can have, as Mike has talked about, a dual metering system where you actually have a meter for electricity that comes into your house and a meter for electricity that you're producing and putting into the grid, which, because if you're getting paid a different amount for the amount that you're generating versus what you're having to pay, then they can keep track of it a little bit better.
But we cannot do that in Tennessee.
You can't do that
That's
in Tennessee.
ridiculous. Well, maybe this new board might change that.
There are a lot of states that are going away from net metering right now because originally when it was designed, and I love net metering, don't get me wrong, the cost of solar was more expensive than that of fossil fuels. But now that it's cheaper, a lot of people are looking at it and saying, this is a form of subsidy. We really don't need a subsidy anymore because it's cheaper. It's just that it's produced different and than a major power plant. You have less dense distribution. So there are some metrics that are different that have to be taken into consideration. But I still would advocate for net metering, although I don't think that it's going to end up happening in Tennessee.
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, one reason that TVA discourages net metering is that they have to balance the load on their system. In other words, if there's more demand for electricity, they have to fire up more power plants to deliver that power, and vice versa. If there's less power, they have to phase back. But I suppose that it creates another level of challenge because if individuals are supplying power to their distribution system, they have to account for that, and that adds another layer to their complication. But I think it's a layer that needs to be resolved to make it happen.
Now, do either of y'all have solar panels on your houses?
I don't at present.
Do you?
I've been considering it.
Okay. See, and y'all are really techie guys. Like, y'all could. I mean, my husband could probably manage that, but I think the average person doesn't know how to maintain and keep solar panels at their houses. So that's why I think rather than putting it on the individual to, hire someone, put them up on their houses, maintain them, check the meters, check the batteries, all that stuff. I mean, the average homeowner does not know how to do that. I think it's so much better if just the utility itself is doing solar and wind and just providing it to the consumer, so they don't have to do that. Because I know I stayed at a house in Hawaii that had it, and we were always having to check meters and do all this stuff and I'm not techie at all. It was kind of a challenge for me. So I don't think that the focus should be on trying to get individual homeowners to do that, because half the people rent anyway, and so I mean, what do y'all think? I mean, do you feel like solar should be the onus on the homeowner to get it, or on the utility to just get it and provide it?
As any kind of contract that you would sign, there's fine print in anything. You can lease a solar system to put on your house. That none of the maintenance is your responsibility.
Oh, that's a good idea. I would do that. I would not want to have to be responsible for it, though.
But otherwise, there are technologies, there are softwares that keep track of everything within the solar system and only alert you to something if you need to be alerted about it.
Okay.
Solar is a passive system except for electrons running here and there. There's no moving parts, so it's nothing to really break. So there's not a lot of maintenance to it. You might have to get your hose and spray off the panels if you have a dust storm or something. That
Right,
might help,
right.
but other than that, it's not a big deal.
Okay. Well, we're almost out of time. I know that in the Inflation Reduction Act that Biden just passed, there are a lot of incentives. For homeowners to make their houses more energy efficient and save money and save energy. What are some of the things in the Inflation Reduction Act that a homeowner can take advantage of? And either of y'all can answer that.
There's a very generous tax credit for doing energy savings measures in your house, which would include different kind of heat pump and air conditioning, or more insulation, or better doors or windows.
And how would that work? Would I have to, like, if I went and bought a new HVAC system for my house, when it's time to pay taxes, what do I do? Is there a place on the tax form where you would put that, or like how does it work?
Yeah, there's a separate form that you would fill out that would list all your expenses for that installation.
Okay. And so any tax provider, CPA person would know how to help you do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a little bit of details you have to kind of jump through the hoops. It normally would provide 30% of the cost of the installation up to a certain cap value, say $600 for windows and doors.
Okay, so it's windows and doors, it's insulation, what else?
Well, anything you could think of that it creates energy efficiency would fall into, probably most likely fall into that plan. There's also a tax credit for buying a electric vehicle, and that could be up to $7,500. There's another stipulation that you have to owe enough taxes to absorb the tax credit. So if you don't owe any taxes, then the tax credit doesn't do you any good because you don't have anything to go against.
Right.
Then there's a 30% credit for solar panels.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's a program where you could have an assessment levied against your property for the money required for a energy saving benefit, and that would go onto your tax bill for, say, 20 years or so until it's paid off.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's all new things from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Most of them, yeah.
Okay. That's nice. It sounds complicated, though. It just sounds complicated, but I think it's great, though. So I'm asking both of y'all, what do you think is the cost to individual consumers, to the country, and to the planet by continuing with business as usual? Business as usual meaning fossil fuels, having leaky houses that aren't energy efficient. What is the cost of that, just staying what we're doing?
I would say the existence of mankind.
He's not joking. We don't know. We know that the last time the carbon dioxide levels were as high as they are right now was 800,000 years ago. And it took thousands and thousands of years to reach that level. And we humans have been able to do it in less than 200 years. And it's still growing. So we don't really know exactly what's going to happen, but we know that it's not going to be good. And that's why everybody's trying to put emphasis on reducing the carbon emissions as quickly as possible so that we can mitigate, not fix or correct that problem. We humans are just going to have to adapt to the situations that we're causing ourselves. And it's not so much me as an old man as it will be my kids and grandkids. And I've got to think about that. So,
What country can you point to that is doing the best job of becoming energy efficient? And like, what kind of things do they have?
Well, there's a lot of countries that are well ahead of the United States, let's put it that way. There's no country in the world except maybe Costa Rica that is doing what they said they would do. All of these years with the International Panel on Climate Change from the United Nations, they've had 27 meetings, annual meetings, and not much is getting done.
So what's Costa Rica doing?
Huh?
What's Costa Rica doing?
Costa Rica has just decided to become carbon neutral, and they're almost there, the whole country. And but a lot of that involves things that have to do with being more conservative about the way you use energy and conserving that energy. Say, for instance, one of the tax credits that you can get that has been available in other means, but is going to be more available with the IRA program.
Inflation Reduction Act.
So I'm sorry, yeah, Inflation Reduction. What you get the most bang for the buck in is increasing the insulation values at your home and your business, because then you're using less energy already, and you get paid back that cost quicker than in any other way of doing energy conservation. So that's one of the things Costa Rica has done. They've decided to become as efficient and use things smartly, then they don't have to have as much, and they can reach your goal in a quicker time.
And they have windmills all over, and
It's more solar
Okay,
down
more
there.
solar.
They have some, but it's more solar.
Okay, well, I want to thank y'all so much for coming, and I wanted to just announce one more time before we go that the Franklin County Democratic Party is having a spelling bee. It's going to be Monday, February 20th at the Suwanee Community Center, and I hope y'all can come. There's going to be great food, great prizes, and it's always so fun watching the kids spell. They do such a great job, and we're really happy to be doing this again. And again, we're at Franklin County, Tennessee, DemocraticParty.com. And thank y'all so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Ahead of the release of the Tyree Nichols arrest footage, the Memphis Shelby County School District has announced all after-school activities today have been canceled.